Thanks for being with us today. I'm Dr. John O'Keefe, your breakthrough specialist and host of the show Celebrity Entrepreneur. And this is the show that will, over the time, give you ideas, tips, and hints about how you as an entrepreneur or an executive or an athlete or celebrity can make the choices in your life to create success and abundance regardless of what's going on around you. I'm very excited today because we've got a special guest, and that is Lynda King, and she is the owner of King Size Bows. Thanks, Lynda, for being with me today.
My pleasure, Dr. John.
I know how busy you are, so I appreciate you getting here today.
Certainly.
Well, before we go into what Lynda's doing now, let me give you a little bit of background about what she's doing. She previously owned King Collection, a collection of high-end costume jewelry for 11 years. She developed it, and as I understand it, eventually sold it to
a home shopping network.
Home shopping network. Isn't that amazing? See what you can do when you put your mind to it? Now, she has a background also as a director of marketing in the past for various companies, well-rounded, and she's got lots of ideas for the future. But today, we're going to talk about her current venture, which is King Size Bows. So, what happened? How did you come up with that idea for that as an entrepreneur?
Well, Dr. John, when I had the King Collection, the jewelry collection, which I had for 11 years, during that time we purchased a car for our daughter for Christmas. Well, you have to wrap it up on Christmas morning when she came out. And I called all over the place trying to find a bow, and I couldn't find one large enough. I had to make one, and I'm not particularly crafty, I have to admit. So we presented the car, and great tears and great excitement all around. And I've always had a file in my office of a file that says inspirations. And so I put in my file of inspirations bows for cars because I couldn't find one. I thought, well, I'm just going to stick this idea in here. So fast forward many, many years later, I had completed some consulting jobs for various companies, and I was a little bored, and I called 10 automobile dealers one morning. And I said, we're purchasing a car for our son. I didn't get it from you, but do you know where I could find a big red bow? And 9 out of 10 of them said, I wish I knew. We get that request all the time.
Wow.
So that was my focus group, that was my research group, and that was the beginning of my business.
And I understand, for example, there's a very famous commercial from Lexus, wasn't that right?
That's a very famous commercial. We've been very privileged to do the great big red bows on the Lexus commercial for the last 5 years.
That's amazing. And that's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. New ideas, key ideas, and when you think about that, what in your life have you thought about? What idea is new and unique that you could create for someone? I want you to think about that and make that part of your own. You know, Lynda, as entrepreneurs, we have so many things to do during the day. How do you prepare yourself for the start of the day?
Well, my first conscious thought of the morning, before my toes ever hit the floor, is to have a sense of gratitude and a sense of that this is a new day, a new beginning, and I'm going to show up for this day. I am going to appreciate everything I have around me, show up, and give it back.
That's really incredible, because what we find, and we've talked about it on the show before, the power of gratitude is one of the most powerful elements out there. It's right there, not to be too ethereal here, but with the power of love. In terms of when we're grateful for what's going on, as we know, that gratitude is an energy, and that's where we get cause and effect. And what we're grateful for, we tend to receive more of in the future. And so that's really wonderful that that's a part of your day.
And then I take about 10 to 15 minutes every day, as usually when I'm driving to the office. And I say, thank you for all that I have received. And I start listing it, from my husband to my children to my family to my friends to the shoes that I have on that I just love. Everything, large, small, the leaves on the trees, the air that I breathe. I just make a point to be just grateful. And then my last sentence is, and all that I am about to receive, because I am confident that all the things that have brought me to this moment in my life will continue in the next moments of my life. So I say bring it on with great confidence that it will come.
So beautifully said. Isn't that a beautiful thing? And you know, that's true. And what Lynda's talking about is what we've talked about before, which is the law of expectation. When you put yourself in a position to expect success, whatever it is, personal, professional, any kind of thing like that, you're often going to receive it. Now, what she said is she's very clear on what she's thankful for first, and then what she expects. And these things happen, as you've heard, for her on a regular basis. So we've talked about it before, the three elements: ask, believe, and receive. Asking for what you want, believing, knowing that it's coming in expectancy, and then receiving, allowing it to happen. And that's a beautiful example, and you'll hear more from her about what she's done, and it's amazing to think about that. So with so many things developing in the business, and certainly your niche business, how do you handle obstacles that might develop during the day, or with a new product, or maybe developing things that were in disappointments that happen?
Well, certainly disappointments, sadnesses happen in everyone's life. You can't go through life with lollipops and roses. But my philosophy is, right or wrong, is that I start from the solution. When I was developing the bow, it took me 9 months to develop the perfect bow. But I didn't start with all the problems. How am I going to market it? How am I going to create it? Who's going to buy it? What am I going to sell it for? What am I going to make it out of? I would be daunted by that task. I started at the solution. The solution was I wanted to have a perfect bow at a great price that would bring joy to people. That my target market were automobile dealers at that time. And the automobile dealers could have on their parts department and just take off the shelf very quickly and give it to a customer who was presenting a car for a special event. I knew it had to be shipped economically. So I started with the size of the box and worked my way back. So the size of the box, which is 12 by 12 by 12, determined the size of the loops. So I already had a lot of the design aspects done as I'm working back. Well, then I had to have something that would fit in this box, that would bend perfectly, and then be able to be created and recreate itself, so it would be idiot-proof in putting it together. So that's how I approach things, and that was a tangible approach. But even if I have a problem with a customer, for instance, I go into the solution. The solution is I want the end result to be harmonious, and I want to always give more than I get, and I want him or her to just be saying, I had the best experience with king-size bows. We might have had a little glitch along the way, but the end result was a great experience. So by starting from the back and working this way, it works for me.
There you go.
It makes it simpler. I need to be simple.
Oh, we all do, you know, and that's the key. Notice what she said was give more than you get. And it's true, when you hear her talk about each one of the points, that's what I'm picking up. So I suggest that you think about that in every element of your business. I know you already are, and make it stronger and faster, and that's what's going to get you into the position where Lynda is doing today. So one of the things that I heard, and I think our audience is going to really be excited. I was excited when I heard it, was that Oprah, on that show where she gave away all those cars.
Yes.
By the way, we're not giving away cars today, so don't get excited. But she had bows placed on all of the cars, and you created that.
Well, actually, that is a funny story, Dr. John. I received a call at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon from a woman in Chicago, and she was frazzled. And she said, I need 100 bows in Chicago by 8:30 tomorrow morning on Saturday. And at that time, I didn't even have 100 bows in stock, which I will say now I have thousands in stock, many thousands. I learned from that one, but I didn't have them. And she said, you don't understand. I don't care what you charge me. Charge me anything you want, just get me the bows.
Right.
And I couldn't do it. So I was very sad, but that was just the way it was. And so Monday morning when the show I was watching the show, and then I started to put together a woman in Chicago, bows on cars. I bet that was Oprah's producer, which it was. I called her back and I said, I can't tell you how sorry I was I didn't have those bows in stock.
Sure.
Lesson learned. But she liked me. And it turned out to be something better, because as each of those 276 recipients received their cars in their own hometowns, I shipped a bow to each of the dealerships sponsoring that car in each town. So each time a recipient picked up a car, there was press in that hometown. The dealership found out about me.
Gosh.
And so that happened to be a much more pervasive experience than if they had just been on television that morning and no one would have known where to get them. It really put me on the map.
Wow, I can imagine. You think about that, 246, was it?
76.
76 individual instances, cars delivered, bows,
Yeah.
all the publicity. That's an amazing thing.
But I had put out there that I needed to have dealerships know about my bows.
Uh-huh,
That was instant recognition.
right. And once again, what she's talking about is putting out there what she's focused on. And certainly she did it in a very intentional way. And what you intend is what you attract. And
Absolutely right.
obviously, wow, that's a great thing. So out of all of these things, there's got to be some stories or maybe a particular incident or client that or a couple of them that comes to mind. Can you share with us what that might be?
You know, it's the business I've been in business nearly 12 years with this business.
Oh.
And I already have my second two businesses already identified, although I can't talk about them. But it's just the business, I've always thought that the business, I never tell the business which direction to go. The business tells me. And if you listen, you see where the natural evolution of a business takes you. When I started, I thought, oh, if I could just sell car dealers, that'd be great. Now, I sell a boatload of car dealers and individuals, and I sell not all, but many of the major manufacturers corporately, and they buy thousands and ship them out to all their dealerships, and then individuals. But now my business has morphed into many custom bows, and we wrap entire buildings now.
Wow.
We just did a big project for the Golden Gate Bridge for the 75th anniversary, and they called and they wanted
right.
3 huge silver satin bows with 300 yards of wrap to go around all the buildings. We just did an 18-foot AIDS awareness loop for Paramount Studios, and we're doing
Really?
several more. So now I'm morphing into those ideas because I'm just listening, and the business is knocking me upside the head going, trust me, go this direction. You
Right.
need to go this direction as well.
You know, that's so interesting because we've talked about the advent of listening, and it's so important that you listen to what's happening inside of your mind, your heart, as well as your clients, because most of us, you know, we spend a lot of time, we hear stuff, and remember when you were a kid, your mom might have said, well, I bet that went in one ear and out the other, didn't it? Well, that's hearing, but listening, and the definition really quickly is gathering information, listening to that information, making a decision, then taking action. That's exactly what Lynda's done there. And look what's happened in that situation. That's an amazing process.
You know, another business that I have in mind, although I'm staying with the bow business for a while because it's just wonderfully satisfying for me, but I was at a huge event. There were thousands of people at this huge conference. And I hate to be vague, but I can't tell you my idea, so
Sure.
forgive my vagueness.
Understand.
But there was a thing at this event that it was passed out to everyone, and everyone was saying, oh, is this the coolest thing? I could use this. This would be great. I'd love to have it for parties. This is wonderful. Where do you get this thing? And I just kept listening to all this chatter. So I went, and now all those thousands of people at that thing, they heard the same chatter.
Right?
I went home and I Googled that thing. And that thing is not just widely distributed. It is just a very small, you purchase it in a very small way. But I know I can purchase that thing for pennies and sell it for quarters.
Wow.
And I can repackage it and market it and then have the joy of getting this thing to all these people who would really appreciate it. In fact, I even called several buyers of large retail chains that might use this thing, and again, pardon my vagueness,
No, we understand. That's intellectual property, and we understand that process.
And they said, oh, sure, we'd be very interested in that. So that's how easy it is. It's listening. It's opening yourself up for all the wonderful pieces and bits of information that are bombarding us all the time.
Right.
But we go through life like a wall of kryptonite that nothing can penetrate and nothing can get out.
And that's a beautiful example. We often talk about working with clients about opening their filters, and each one of us has a filter within us that the issue there is that filter gives us information just flowing all the time. But based on our current belief system, if we're in a positive place where we're creative, we're going to get new and creative things. If we're negative, closed off, that's what's going to happen to us. So that's why it's important. That's a living example of paying attention to your thought process and making it happen. That's an incredible thing.
Well, everyone heard it.
I can imagine. So with all of the process that we've been talking about, how did you arrive at your personal philosophy?
Well, I was fortunate, and I grew up in a very positive family environment, very loving family. And they kind of told me from the time I was a little girl, Lynda, you're just fine, just the way you are. You're just fine. So I didn't grow up with the I'm less than, I can't have this, there's lack. There was never a thought of lack in our home, although we weren't, we didn't have abundance of lots of things. We had what we needed. And so now if someone says, I have a consciousness of wealth is what I want to say. I go around with a consciousness of wealth, and by that I mean if I wanted to purchase one of the beautiful yachts that you overlook here in your offices, I could do that if I wanted to.
Right.
I never will say, I can't afford that. I can't have that. Oh no, that's not for me, that's for someone else. Because the reality is, if I wanted to sell our home and my car and get 3 jobs, I could make it happen if I truly wanted it.
Exactly.
The reality is, I don't want it. So I don't fill my life up with a lot of stuff that I don't need. I only get what I want.
So beautifully said. And isn't that a thought that you've had before about what's going on out there? But take your thoughts, whatever they are, and practice what Lynda's talking about, which is going forth with that expectation and letting the scarcity go, letting the lack move forward. Because, well, an example is just exactly what Lynda's saying. Has there been anything in your life that you really, really wanted? You really wanted it bad. I mean, think about it. Maybe you were a kid, that skateboard, that bicycle.
Yeah.
And somehow you figured a way to get it.
Exactly.
That's the same process. That subconscious we talk about often doesn't know the difference. All it knows is what you intend is what you attract. And that's a beautiful example of living your life.
But by wanting that skateboard, you put the skateboard at the end and you walk towards it. Mm-hmm. Somehow you find a path.
Right. Beautifully said. So there we have an example of pathways. And Lynda's lived that all her life, from working in businesses as directing in marketing and so forth, to opening businesses, and now king-size bows. So Lynda, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And that philosophy is really wonderful.
It's worked for me.
And I hope you take that with you today. And if you follow those steps, amazing things are going to happen for you. And so my challenge for you is, watch this show, think about what Lynda has said, and then put it into action. We hear all kinds of wonderful things every day, but if we don't take action, nothing really gets done. So once again, thanks for being with me. This is Dr. John O'Keefe, and you've been watching Celebrity Entrepreneur. And
I will tell you to have a very bodacious day.
Bye, everybody.